Hi everyone, this is Sharon. Today I have a flip through of a journal I made for this month's design team project for Lydia at Raindrop Lila. And what I created was an Alice in Wonderland themed journal. I've been wanting to do this for the longest time and I finally got around to doing it. I made 4 Alice journals as my very first journals that I created and shared on YouTube and sold in my Etsy shop. And that was 6 years ago. So the last year or so, I've been kind of itching to make another series of Alice journals. And this is the first in hopefully a series. I'm not going to commit to that, but I might make a couple more after this one. So I was thinking about this journal and I knew I had some old Alice in Wonderland books and I used one for my cover. But I also thought Lydia's digitals would be perfect to use in this journal. She's got, came out with a vintage floral background and tags kit recently, and I thought the colors in there and the feel of that just really would go well in this journal. And I also used a lot of her yellow rose collection, which is huge, and I haven't gotten through all those images yet, so I wanted to use some of those as well. So looking at the front of the cover, I tied it up with this polka dot sari ribbon, and I just thought that was nice and whimsical and fit the cover colors really nicely. And then I also embellished with a little key, and I'll take this off so I can show you, a little clock or a little pocket watch for our rabbit. So I used one of these optometrist lenses, and then on the back I just put a beautiful kind of floral image on there. And then my old key. And then I'll untie this ribbon. I love this cover. It's got a really kind of vintage and beautiful colors in there. I embellished it a bit with a piece of lace. And then this is what the back looks like. And then I just added, I had to create my own spine, so I just used this vintage floral fabric for the spine. I thought that went well with the cover as well. So this will be available for purchase in my Etsy shop, and in that listing I will put all the specifications like size and pages and everything in there. So as we head on to the inside, I decided to use one of the pages. So for the front, I used this table of contents to line the inside of my front cover. And then on the back, I used another page from the book to line that. And this is a copyright of 1928, so close to 100 years old. And then for the spine, I used this beautiful linen fabric from Roxy Creations. And then on this first page, I embellished it with a little bit of lace, and I layered that with a wax seal. Here on this page, I've got this velvet ribbon, and I love the color in there, and I just added a vintage button to that. And then I use this beautiful background paper behind it. And then in that pocket, I've got this antique postcard. And then I made this piece. So I have this tab here, and I used an old book page, and this tab just kind of acts as the closure. And then in here, I've just stitched in a number of pages. So I've got this vellum piece, and then an Alice book page, some grid paper for writing, and then here's the old French book page at the back. And this is the back side. I just embellished a little bit with some fabric, stamp. And then this is a page from an Alice book. I have quite a collection. I mean, lots of Alice books. I don't know, even long before I started making journals, I was collecting old Alice books. And so I've been going through some of those. I'm going to donate some. I'm just going to pare down a little bit, but I went through all of the books I had and used pages from a number of different books, not just the ones from this book. Here I just punched the edge of that. And then here I created a top tuck with this beautiful handkerchief corner, and there's a map image underneath there. And then in there I've got this tag that I made, so I just added some ribbon and lace on there, this beautiful image. And then that's backed with some vintage wallpaper. And then on this side I did stamp the top, some writing room on there. And then here I just have this vintage page from a botanical book and just punched the bottom of that. Here on my strings, I just added a little bits of lace. This is a beautiful image from one of Lydia's kits. And here I just added a fabric pocket in the corner. I think the colors on here match the image really nicely. And then in there, I've got this little piece that I made. I've got some embossed paper on the back. And then this is another little card that I made. Some room to journal. And then here's another journaling card that I made. Here on this page, another map image, and then I've got this little tag that I made. So this is from a page from an Alice book, and then I added an image to this pocket on this side, and then in there I tucked this piece of paper that can be used for journaling. I just love the colors in these old vintage books. The images are really neat. My favorite book as a child, I think that's why I collected so many of them. And here's another beautiful image, book page. And I just reinforced this page with a little bit of washi tape. Here I added this pocket. And again, some beautiful images in the background. And then in there, I tucked this little envelope that I made. So this is an image from an Alice book page. And here I just added some embossed paper to trim the side of that. And then I added this fabric tab on there. And that opens up. And then inside, I've got this beautiful linen fabric that I added for my belly band. And in there, I just tucked a couple little pieces. These are little French seed packet envelope images, and I just tucked some writing papers inside those. Here I've got some treated napkin that I just used as my page, an Alice book page. Here I've got this cornered pocket with this Alice book page image, and then this beautiful background paper. And then in there I've got this old postcard with some beautiful handwriting on there. This is a French one. And then this was a dust jacket from one of the Alice books. I just added a little ribbon on there. And then I used that as kind of a little tuck spot for this journaling card that I made. This is piano paper on the back side. And then I just did a little bit of stenciling on the inside there. This is some old ledger paper. And then here I created a couple of pockets and added some lace and fabric to embellish those. And then in there I've got this old book page, and I just added this waxed image to that. And then here I've got a journaling card that I made. Some writing room on the inside. And then this waxed image, beautiful bouquet. And then I just attached it with a little bit of stitching to a plain book page. Get my little clip back on there. Here on this page, I've clipped an original tin type image. Hopefully you can see that. I've got a ring light above me. And it came with this frame. And that's just the back. I think it was maybe attached to some type of an album or something at one time. I just left the paper on there because it's got someone's name on there, Ida Carnes. And then here on the page, I just embellished with a little bit of ticking and lace. And then on this side of the page, I've got clipped on. I created this little side tuck here with this image from Lydia, and I just stitched that on there with a little bit of decorative stitching. And then to that, I tucked this piece. So here I've got some Alice stamps too that I purchased a number of years ago. So I stamped this piece, and it creates a little corner tuck on there. You could tuck something into that piece. And then on this side, I created this belly band. I've got this beautiful, I don't know if it's wallpaper or some type of wrapping paper that I got from Rachel at Rexy Creations. I just love the pattern and the color on there, and I use that to create my belly band. And then in there, I just attached this kind of bookmark that can be used from an Alice book. Here I created a pocket, and I just kind of lined it with some watercolor swatches that I made, and then also punched it. And then in there, I've got this, it's like a music sheet page from one of Lydia's kits, and I just added some labels on there. And then on the inside, I created a little side tab there, and there's lots of writing room in there. And then I made this journaling card. Here we've got, I love this image. This is the Mad Hatter, I believe, in court. So I thought that was a cool picture, and I just added a little bit of fabric on there to add some interest on the page. And then here's the other piece of that treated napkin, and I just stitched this little, I don't know, embossed piece that I made. Got one on this side and one on this side, and I just kind of sandwiched them and stitched them on. Here on this side of the page, this pretty image I used for the pocket. In the pocket, I've got this item, so it's kind of a little trifold. And I just took an old Dennison wall picture hanger and used that as my tab, and then put a little bit of ribbon in there. Here I created a flip out. So on the inside, I've got this pocket, and then in there I've got a tag that I made. And then this is just a little kind of folder piece that can be used for writing or collecting things. So again, I've got some Alice book pages here, and then this is piano paper that I lined this with. And then here I just clipped on an original vintage photo, this beautiful lady. Here, another Alice book page. And then on this side of the page, I've got this doily that I used for my corner tuck. And then in there, I've got this antique postcard. It's a little embossed, some raised areas on there. And then I have this old check from 1927. And this is a French one. Here's one of those beautiful images I just love from Lydia's Vintage Floral Backgrounds. And in the center of the signature, I use this vintage envelope, actually a couple of them, and I put them together to form this kind of flippy thing here. And then I've got some beads on my strings. And let's see what we've got here. Let's see. I've got a pocket that I made. I created on the outside of this one. And then in there, I've just got this little journaling spot little side tuck on that. I've got in here, I've used the original letter that was in the envelope to kind of line it and give it a little bit more structure, especially around the top edge there. And then on this side, I just created a little side tuck and tucked in this little piece. So there's some writing room in there and this embellished book page. And then on this side also, another book page that I use as my base, and then just added some writing room on the back. And then in the pocket on this side, I've got more of that original letter that was in this envelope. And it's all in French, so I'm not sure what it says. And then here on this page, I just did a little bit of embellishment with some book parts and a label. Some beautiful images again. This again is from that vintage floral background kit. Here on this page, I created a double belly band with some lace. And then in there, I added this tag. And I just created this little tuck on the back with this old antique ledger piece. And then I've got this little card on there. This, I believe, is some Tim Holtz tissue paper. I just treated that with a glue mixture so it gets kind of nice and thick and strong. Here I created a side tuck with this vellum piece. And then in there, I've got this altered envelope. So I turned it inside out so the striping would be on the outside. And then I created this little pocket on the bottom by flipping the envelope up. And I've got this little image in the window from one of the Alice book pages. And then in there, I've got this book spine. And this book spine, I don't know, was it from this book? I'm not sure. It very well, I do believe it was from this book. I just had to cut it off a little bit because it was shredding. And then I've got this little strip of watercolor swatches in there. And then on this side, I created kind of a tuck spot using the envelope itself. And then I just did some collaging on there. And then in there, I tucked this journaling card. Over on this side, I created a pocket with this image or a top tuck. And then in there, I've got this piece. So I just took some craft paper, did some stenciling on there with paste. And then I've got an old book page from a bird book that I have. Here on this page, I use this beautiful old French fabric and just embellished it with a little bit of lace. And then in there, I've got this journaling card that I made. Here I just added a stamp at the top. This is a really thick piece of paper, and it's a prized possession of mine. I got it from my dear friend Wynette. She gifted it to me, and it was just so precious. But there's so much in this journal and in the Alice books that are related to food, and I thought this would be the perfect place to use this. It's quite large, but I just used it as kind of a double page in the center here. So it's an old plate from, I'm sure it's antique, from an old book, French book, but it's got these beautiful images on it. And I just embellished it ever so slightly at the top with some texture paste that I just inked with a little bit of pink. But I absolutely love this image. And so I just kind of folded that up to create a little bit of an envelope, so that could be a great place to tuck things in here. And then I've just got this clip that I clip on the side to clip it closed, and just added some vintage fabric onto that. Here on this side of the page, I've got another fabric pocket, and then in there, I've got this image. Here I've clipped on another journaling card that I made. Some beautiful sari on there. This is, I don't remember where this came from. It's an old piece of paper. I don't know if it was a book page. It may have been. This is what the back page looks like. Got to get that Cheshire cat in there. Here I've got a side tuck. And then in there I've got some pieces. This is an envelope I received in the mail, and I thought it was the most wonderful thing. I'm trying to think what I got in there. I don't know if there were stickers or something else that I got, but they've got these fun little flaps, and it's a double one. So there's a little flap, and there's just some little slits in there where those flaps fit in. So I thought I will reuse that, and I just tucked a couple of fun little things in here. A little lamb image from one of Lydia's digitals. And then on this side, I've got another one. If I can get it out. They're a little snug. Cute. And let's see what else we have in this pocket. This piece, I love this image of this woman. This is a waxed, or on vellum, I think this one is. And then some of that vintage wallpaper and an old book page. And I just stitched those all together. Here I embellished this page with a little bit of metallic paper that I punched. And then on this side of the page, I created this top tuck with this beautiful image. And then in there, I've got a few things. Here I just took an Alice book page and added this doily at the top. And I've got this music sheet. Just some vintage items. And then this is, looks like an invoice from 1895. I love the beautiful headers on those. Here I have some more of that paper from Rachel at Roxy Creations. And it's kind of crinkly and a little bit folded. And I just added to that page this yo-yo, vintage yo-yo that I have, and some lace. And that's all on a fabric page. So then on this side, I just added a little bit of lace at the top and hand stitched that on. And then on this side of the page, I've got a side tuck. I've added some string because there were some holes already in that paper. So I just strung some string and added this wax seal to it. And then in that side tuck, I've got this piece. So here I did some machine stitching. That's some decorative stitching. And that just holds in this. That can be used as a little tuck spot. Behind that, I've got some embossed paper. The back, I just embellished a little bit. Here on this side of the clip, I've got another tag that I made. These beautiful butterflies. And then some writing room on the back. And I just added this beautiful satin ribbon to the top. This is an image from Lydia. It's not a book page. Here on my strings, I added a couple of vintage stamps that kind of go with the background image. And then here on this side of the page, I've got a pocket and a belly band together, so they kind of hold in these items. And I've got this antique advertising piece. It's a French piece. I love that. Advertising some chocolate. And then this is an old book page with some poems on it. These pockets I just kind of embellished with some old scraps of paper that I had and these full buttons. This is a vintage piece of paper from an electrician's handbook. I love the blue for one thing, the blue ink, but I also love these old kind of drawings and diagrams. On the back side, I took a stencil that I have and just added that on the page. And then here's the other side of that fabric page or piece that I have. And I just pinned this hat pin on the top with some small beads tucked in between there onto the lace. Here on this side, again, I did a little bit of collaging with some paper and lace. And this is a book page, and I just added some stencil paste on the top of that. Here I created this little tuck on the side here with this image. I think it's supposed to be, I don't even know, like some type of a antique mirror maybe, or something like that. And I just tucked in there this little piece. So this is a vellum piece on top, over the top of the book page. And then there's some writing room on the back. And that takes us to the back side. So I hope you enjoyed that flip through today of my Alice and Adventures in Wonderland. I may have maybe a couple more Alice books coming down maybe later this year or in the next couple of months. We'll see how I do in getting to those. But thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate you coming along with me. And until next time, bye-bye.